Hey, what's up, everybody? It's the special edition of Damian G Show. As always, find me on Twitter at DamianG347. Once again, joined by my guest, Melissa Foss, who encouraged me to do this episode because we are entering the holiday season. And for those that don't know, I am none too fond of the holiday season. I have been labeled, sometimes some would say self labeled, the Grinch that hates Christmas. But this was actually meant to kind of facilitate communication as always, because I love to try to help people to become the best version of themselves, as cheesy as that sounds. But in order to do that effectively, I feel like I have to be a little bit more open and honest with my audience here. So I am taking the time for however long this episode lasts to kind of be a little bit more open and descriptive in my musings and my dealings. So I guess the first topic here would be just dealing with the holidays, I would say. Yeah.
Sure. I would agree. I think, like you said, we're kind of in that time of the year for those that aren't already celebrating based on your personal beliefs. We're getting into Christmas here in just a couple of weeks. And like you said, there's a lot of perspectives on this. Some people are really looking forward to them. For some people, this is a harder time of year.
Well, when you say harder time of year, what exactly are you referencing as far as just what, the holidays in general or just something else?
I think that could be really individualistic. I think for some people, the weather sometimes can be an impacting factor, as to people just feeling a bit more down. The sun's going down quite a bit earlier, and that can obviously psychologically play a part. And I think, like we were discussing before we went on the air, that you yourself have your own stories and experiences that you've gone through at the holiday time that have made it more difficult for you to be able to enjoy them as much as maybe someone else would.
So, considering that you're kind of an outsider in terms of my dealings with the holidays, or even what today's episode would probably be about, what do you think, in your estimation, is a good place to start?
Let's start at the very beginning.
Oh, God, we're going to be here a while if that's the case. If I'm starting from the beginning, man, I'm going to be here for a while.
I think you should start wherever you want to start.
Well, beside the fact that I hate the holidays, I mean, I don't know where else to start. So I guess we're just going to drop the demon in the bucket, as it were. I've never liked them. That stems from my childhood. And yes, this is about to be a Dr. Phil moment for those who don't know. So sorry ahead of time. But you're looking at me with like all the no face in the world. But
I personally am a firm believer, and you know this, and I think a lot of other people know this, that I think that your story is important. And the downplaying of it is a part that I'm not a big fan of, because as much as it's generalized into like, oh well, I just don't like it. It's okay. That's all right. And your opinion on something and my opinion on something might be different, and that's okay. It doesn't make anyone's perspective on the topic any less or any more than the other.
well, fair enough. So in keeping with the theme, I'll just say this. It all started with no. I'd like to think my loathing of the holiday season kind of started with the last Christmas before my family and I wound up in our first homeless shelter. And I remember this Christmas very distinctly, and I've told this to a few people who know the story. And now you know the story, actually, before I tell it to the audience. My last Christmas that I remember being jovial and fitting that Yuletide celebration vibe would probably be, I was around 7 or 8. It was one of those two. I remember distinctly this Christmas because a couple of gifts I received. Number one was Hungry Hungry Hippo. I used to love that game. I've owned that game multiple times, at least 3 times in my life after the fact. But that was a gift that was given to me during Christmas, and I really enjoyed that game, and I've kind of got a soft spot for that. But also, for those who know me very well, I'm a Transformers guy. I like Transformers, and we all know my favorite cartoon character of all time is Optimus Prime. So I wound up being gifted an Optimus Prime talking mask. Now the mask was the original Optimus Prime from the Generation One cartoon, 1985, six, around there. Uh, Kind of old school for those who may not know. Some of you listening may not have been alive at that point. That's okay. But it basically was a voice synthesizer that made me sound like the voice of Optimus Prime, voiced by one Peter Cullen, who is one of my favorite voice actors of all time. So I distinctly remember that because shortly thereafter, maybe not even 2 months after, my family and I, my mom, my dad, I don't really recall if my brothers were there or which ones were there, we wound up in our first homeless shelter. Now, let me explain the homeless shelter at the holidays. Everybody got a gift. Every youth child that was there in a underage shelter, everyone was made to feel as if Christmas mattered. So that was cool. But going from being in this typical or atypical Christmas life to not being able to not even afford presents, but being on public assistance and not having a place to live, and that can be very daunting for anyone, let alone somebody who's 7 or 8. I do distinctly remember I was in second grade, so whatever age that puts me in terms of so thereabouts. But I remember that being the only Christmas I've ever really liked because shortly thereafter I found myself with my family, like I said, in the homeless shelter. So I've kind of carried that with me for a little while. Uh, After the shelter stints were over and we were solidified and stabilized, I don't even remember when I stopped believing in Santa Claus, to be honest with you, now that we're having this conversation. I don't remember when I stopped believing. Probably maybe around 1992. And some may say that was a little old for me to not believe in Santa Claus, but we wound up getting one gift. Well, I did. My parents made sure, even after we stopped being homeless, that I got one gift per year. Now, I think the last gift I received that I remembered while the whole Santa is real thing was a Joe Montana football game for the Sega Genesis. I don't remember the year. I think it was 93 or 94. It wasn't Madden football. It was still Joe Montana football. And I remember that was the last time I believed in Santa. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because even living in the homeless shelter, even living couch surfing, apartment surfing when I wound up in other people's homes with my family, I still thought Santa was real. The mystique of Santa Claus I thought was real, that even though I didn't have a home, he'd still find his way to go find me. And because I was a good boy, I did really well in school. I was a B student, and I was well behaved and I followed the rules. So I thought I'm going to get a present, because Santa's going to listen to me. And a lot of times I actually just wish for an apartment. Like that's kind of, that's what I asked Santa for. I said, hey, whenever I go talk to the mall Santa or the community center Santa, I would ask for us to finally have our own place. And then Santa would sometimes kind of divert me from that and say, well, what do you want for you? And I would say, whatever random toy. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up again, and for those who are just joining at the Damian G show, I got my co-host Melissa Foss next to me, and it was her bright idea for me to kind of chronicle this for the rest of y'all, to be able to kind of share in the reasons why I know it's tough during the holidays. So that's what I've carried up to this point. Now, I know a lot of people may have similar stories, and I'm always interested in finding out what those stories might be. And you can let me know at DamianG347 on Twitter. I'll give you my email address for those who want to send it maybe via email, who don't want to reach me via Twitter. So it's Damian_Gracia at hotmail.com. And yes, I still have a Hotmail account like it's 1998. That's okay. Send me any kind of holiday memories where maybe you thought it wasn't the greatest, or something that happened to you that maybe causes you to not really vibe or jive with the holidays too well. So I'll turn it over to my co-host really quick and ask her, hearing this story from me, I don't know if you knew that fully. What is something you can take from this, and as you go throughout your holiday season, maybe there's something you can correlate to it, or if someone's listening out there along with us, what can you pass along to them specifically or supposedly that could kind of say, even though you're struggling, it's okay to enjoy Christmas or the holiday season?
And I didn't know all of that. Honestly, I did not know all of that story. I knew parts of it from some conversations that we've had. But, we talk often about how you and I grew up very differently, but there were a lot of similarities kind of thread throughout them also. And one of them is, not a lot of people know much about my backstory. We grew up with not very much. I vividly remember my dad would sell plasma in order to be able to pay bills when I was a kid. That was normal. I remember him often coming home with, the band-aids around his arms after he'd just done that to be able to pay some bills that we had. I didn't grow up very well off. I wouldn't say I grew up wealthy, but we made it. And my parents both worked really, really hard every year to try and give us the best holiday that they could. The best Christmas, which is what my family has always celebrated, that they could. And, we would usually get a lot of, we get a lot of, and by a lot, I mean, 4 or 5 maybe things of clothes or something like that. And then every year we'd have one quote unquote big gift. I remember when I was like 4 and it was a Raggedy Ann doll, and I thought it was just the coolest thing ever at 4 years old. When I was 7, I got this like art kit, and it had this piece of paper that would be on a spindle in the middle, and it would spin, and you would drop paint on it, and it would do this splatter art. And, these are the things that I remember about my childhood and Christmas and how I grew up. Um, and hearing your story, I think all of us, I think, will have a different perspective on Christmas and on how we grew up with Christmas and what it looks like to us and what the expectations are almost on what Christmas should be and how you should feel. And I think for all of them, no matter if you grew up or right now don't have hardly anything, or if you grew up or right now at this moment you have enough to have a huge house with all of your friends and family over and, pile up presents to the top of the tree, that's okay. Neither one of them is wrong. um, your story is your story. Your experience is your experience, and your feelings around the holidays are justified. You don't, the things that we both kind of went through when we were kids of not having a lot, I think have instilled in us a deep gratitude for the things that we do have. So I think it's just really important to remember that, it's not wrong to feel like the holidays are hard or that the holidays season doesn't come easy for you. That's okay. It doesn't make you wrong or bad or a disappointment or anything like that. Like, your feelings are completely justified on it.
And that's the thing. I think a lot of us we kind of hide in that. We stay in the fact that, well, my holidays were whack, or my holidays sucked. And me personally, just even now, talking to you now, you've known for a while how uncomfortable I am with Christmas in general. And maybe me hiding behind the Grinch moniker, that's just my way of just kind of hiding behind the pain, so to speak. And I know a lot of people out there have done that, and we will all continue to do that. So the message we're trying to convey here is that it's okay that sometimes the holidays are not your most favorite thing in the world, as long as you yourself can find gratitude in some way, shape, or form, I feel, and they say, goodwill towards men, peace on earth, et cetera, et cetera. I think the easiest way to cope with this, and it's worked for me and maybe it could work for you, is I used to volunteer a lot during the holidays. There was a local Salvation Army as I got older, right by my old apartment when I lived in New York, and a soup kitchen not too far also from there as well. That's what I would give my time to. Knowing that I didn't feel anything for the holidays, but maybe, just maybe, I can give that gift to somebody else. I could pay it forward, as it were. And in the same way for Thanksgiving, I used to do that every single year. Now, here's a funny image for you all. Your boy used to be a very, well, my weight did fluctuate from really skinny to kind of chunky, funky looking elf. And yes, Damien did wear tights. Let's just put it out there now. I was rocking tights. It looked kind of funny because if you know any Latin dudes out there, sometimes we got awkward booties. So imagine me putting my Latin self in a pair of tights with Santa Claus. So there was that. And that's kind of how I gave back to kind of have those kids who were so excited to potentially have their minute with Santa, and just knowing that I was a part of that. And I know you, by the time we log off, you're going to probably bust my shoes for that. Just being able to pay that to those youth, because I didn't have it and you didn't have a lot. I didn't have a lot. And to be quite honest, after that, in those blanketed areas between 1988, 87 till about 1992, I don't remember a lot of holidays. Like, if we're being real here, live here on YouTube, on a YouTube stream, I don't recall a lot. The funny story about me punching the clown, I don't know if you know that story. For those who don't know, around maybe third or fourth grade, my father, because we couldn't afford Christmas, even though we were living in our own apartment at the time, or at least apartment surfing, he took me to a local police sponsored holiday party where every child got a gift. And this is where the scary clown thing comes from, where a clown tried to surprise me with a lot of song and dance, and Damien in fourth grade kind of turned around and whacked the clown in the face. And my father kind of laughed at it, thinking it was the most funniest thing he's ever seen. Meanwhile, and I punched the clown in the face. Thank you, It, the original It movie, for traumatizing me to not like clowns. And I had to literally punch that clown in the face. But in between those ridiculous stories, there isn't a lot I remember. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing to say, hey, you're broken because of this. So I want people listening again to the Damian G show, the special episode, basically. And it's okay to not like the holidays. It's okay to, if you had a pretty cruddy or not so perfect childhood, or even now, will you view the holidays going forward as something that's dreadful? Because we all have something where things just don't resonate with us. And even now, talking to you, like, this is probably one of the newer Christmases for me, a holiday season, because my life has changed exponentially in the last year. So I don't know how I'm going to react come Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. But I guarantee you it's completely normal, wink, wink, for us to kind of be okay with that and to live in that and sit in that. And I think that's what I want the audience to really kind of get and understand, to know that it is okay, it is normal for you to want to have a good Christmas. It's okay for you to want to have the best holiday season you could possibly have. But at the same token, it's okay to say, you know what, not my thing. And I'm curious to know what your feedback, Melissa, is on this.
Well, for starters, I won't pick on you about the elf costume because my dad this year is actually dressing up like Santa for multiple events for his church and for the mall out where he lives. So I have nothing to say to that. But I think, just to reiterate what you said, I think sometimes finding ways to give back kind of helps you feel a sense of inclusion or involvement or purpose. I would also say, if this year hasn't been the easiest for you, 2018 for people in my personal life has been a really hard year. For me personally, this has been probably the weirdest year of my life as a whole. Um, and this Christmas will look a lot different from the Christmases that I grew up in. My family is quite a bit more spread out than it has been in the past. And one thing that I've really learned this year, and I would reiterate for people who maybe going through the same thing or have been through a strange year, going through strange experiences now, and just maybe the definition of what's quote unquote normal has changed this year, is I would just make sure that you have people in your life that are speaking truth. And if things are tougher this year than they have been in the past, find the people who will speak truth when you are just believing doubt and just believing lies. And um you know my group of close friends is very small. There's about 4 or 5 people who I reached out to several times this year when I was going through things. And find the people who won't let you feel alone and won't let you feel isolated. And really, really take advantage of that. Really take advantage of the people that you have around you.
And I can concur with that because I've often felt that I was the square peg in the round hole whenever I go to, to homes for Christmas, other people's homes for Christmas that weren't mine. And that's another reason why I would hide behind the volunteerism aspect, because that was my kind of family. That was my kind of interactions. And it's okay. That's what I'm going to say. And I think for this topic, we can wrap a bow around this and just say, in these moments where you feel as if you're not normal, because we all go through it, where we have moments where we don't feel normal, it's okay to not want to do what everybody else is doing. I believe it's Matt Haig that actually, and I know I recognize that face you're giving me. Matt Haig even said during the holiday season, it's okay. It's okay not to drink. It's okay not to eat meat or to spend too much. It's okay to go to social occasions you don't feel up to. It's okay to break your routine. It's okay to not shop around, ginormous crowds. It's okay to basically not be around anything that makes your health worse. Because compulsory fun isn't always fun. Know yourself. And that is directly from Matt Haig's social media page, also by way of Melissa's Instagram page. So it is okay to not want to participate in the general synopsis that is the holidays. And I think that's what I'm going to do to end this quick snippet of the Damian G show, is just know that, hey, I've been there, Melissa's been there, and yet we're here telling you it's okay to not want to be there. It's okay to not want to revel in the holiday revelry or the pageantry of it all. Really quick, one quick aside. There's a neighborhood in Texas, in Dallas. It's a very affluent neighborhood. They had all these Christmas lights and these Christmas.
It's Highland Park.
Thank you. And I drove through there, and all I kept thinking was, this is way too much. Like, if you've seen Christmas Vacation, which I just saw for the first time, and I was quite annoyed while watching this movie, and we'll get into it on another episode, my reactions to it. I just felt driving through that area, it was so much extra that wasn't necessary. And all I could think was, even if I was a billionaire, I wouldn't want my house to be that extra, because it's not doing anything for my Christmas spirit. My Christmas spirit is very well put together by volunteering my time. That was always my Christmas spirit. Watching Mickey's Christmas Carol, watching The Grinch, watching the Pink Panther Christmas. That has been my norm the last couple of years. So your norm may change, and that is okay. And I think that's the message we're trying to get across here. It's okay to not revel in the typical prototype Christmas celebratory nonsense if that's not your thing. And I think that's where I'm going to end my half. So if Melissa has anything to say to top that off, which she's nodding at me, no, you can find her at Melissa Foss 7 on Twitter, myself at Damon G 347. This is a quick hit for the Damon G show. Just want to kind of just put it out there, intentional founding, when you want to just be honest within yourself and just kind of just speak from the heart. And that's what this episode was for. So thank you as always. You go also find me on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Damon G 347. So thanks again, guys. Happy holidays. And I'll probably find you soon on Podcast Champs or another episode. But thank you for giving me the time, because remember, without you, there is no us. Love you.